Noon. This is another episode of Curing Racism. I am your host, Paz Simpson, the happiness engineer, along with my Paul Hoyt. Together we come as a unit to work on erasing the commonly accepted beliefs, to allow examine your behavioral reflexes that come from these biases. We have common accepted biases that cause bias reflexes, things that many of us don't pay attention to, that shape our tribes and the family that we call. So, Paul, welcome to another week of Curing Racism.
Always great to be here, Paz. Welcome to you. Welcome to everybody listening to the podcast. I'm excited for our conversations today.
Yes, sir. You had a great topic to discuss today in order to help people. So I think I'm going to bounce pass the ball to you so that you can start to lead this wonderful discussion.
Awesome. I appreciate that. You know, we talk about there being three great reasons for people to focus on overcoming their racial bias and overcoming their racial tendencies. And those three reasons are the moral imperative, the practical advantages, and the personal growth aspects of that. On the last two, the practical advantages are is when we lift up people in society, when we harvest the wisdom and the talent of everybody, regardless of what group they belong to, our entire society is better off. There's less poverty, there's less crime, there's less division, there's more cooperation, collaboration, agreement, negotiation. It's just a better society. And from a personal growth perspective, it's part of wisdom to be able to overcome your biases, to recognize them and to overcome them. And as we like to say, it's when we learn to see through the superficial differences that divide us, we discover the common values that unite us. But this week we celebrated Martin Luther King Day on Monday, and his primary focus was on the moral imperative, on it just being the right thing to do, to treat other people with respect, with dignity, to accept them, to treat them fairly and kindly. And that was his primary focus. And I did some research last summer on the golden rule. Love your brother, treat your brother as yourself, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And what we find is that emphasis on empathy and that emphasis on fairness and kindness is universal in every religion throughout the world. There are many, many ways of expressing it. I'm going to share a few of them here. In Christianity, it's Luke 6:31, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In Judaism, in the Talmud, it's what is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. This is the whole Torah. This is the rest of the explanation. In Islam, it's none of you truly believes until he wishes for his brother that which he wishes for himself. In Hinduism, this is the sum of your duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. And the list goes on and on and on and on. So we ask ourselves, who's paying attention to this and why is it important? And so I went to my favorite AI engines again, and they say that probably about 92% or so of people really do believe that the golden rule is a good thing. That there's always, in every crowd, there's a few people that, have, I would say, emotional disorders of like antisocial personality disorder, where they really don't feel other people. They don't have empathy for other people. But for the vast majority of us, and I think it's in excess of 92%, we have this subconscious realization that treating other people fairly is a very good thing. We want to be treated fairly. We want to build the habit of treating people fairly because that makes it a better world, makes it a safer place for our children and for our grandchildren. And speaking of grandchildren, um, my favorite expression of that golden rule is what we call the platinum rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do to your children and your grandchildren, because that even speaks, deeper for me now that I am a grandfather. So there is this great reason for the moral imperative to cure racism, to see beyond those superficial things that divide us, to find the common values that unite us. And that is to make the world a better place, not only for ourselves and for our families, but for our children and for our grandchildren and for everybody's children and grandchildren for years and years and generations to come. And that's really what I wanted to get people to focus on today, that almost all of us agree that there is a moral imperative to treat other people fairly and kindly. And now we can do something about it. Now we can study, we can understand the reasons for racism, and we can understand the cures of racism, as you have so eloquently put in the tagline of our book. One conversation, one connection, one heart at a time. Over to you, my friend.
Yes, I love that you have made this the topic of conversation today, because I think many of us, in finding our way, don't realize how similar we are. I'm glad that you brought up multiple different ways of life: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, which are Buddhism, which are the most prevalent religions in our society right now. And to show that in all of those tenets, you know, taught, preached, but is essential to getting to, where we want to be in afterlife. You know, when we talk about karma, right, that's just what goes around comes around, right? So we want to make sure what's going around is love and what's coming back to us. So I definitely am excited about this topic, because there are more commonalities, more similarities amongst us than there are, but we just have to be able to lean into those things that make us all. And I loved you said about the platinum rule. What would you do, like you would want them to treat your kids and grandkids? That is, you know, as a grandfather, nonverbal autism, right? I have, she's not one that can speak for herself anymore. So how you treat her says a lot. So I love that you mentioned that, because it's the babies that are usually the most affected. It's the babies that are usually the most infected, right, by these commonly accepted, but they're the least protected against these behavioral biases, because we don't even notice that there are natural reflexes in many spaces.
Yeah, and I think our love naturally goes out towards the children, towards the babies. I know that I had my racial epiphany, 30 years ago, when I was blessed to hold a baby in my arms that had different colored skin than I had. And it just opened up my heart in ways that took me totally, totally by surprise. So if you're out there and you're challenged with, perhaps a little ongoing, a little underlying racial prejudice, think about the children, think about the babies, think about the toddlers,
Mhm.
and let your natural love for those who are much, much younger than us to come through regardless of the color of their skin. I was talking to a guy yesterday who was in a town in India, and I didn't catch the name of it, but he said there are like 37 million people in that town. I mean, it's like, you know, an amazing, amazing conglomeration. And almost every one of them is Muslim, and they're all good people. You know, they're all kind people. They all just want what we want, which is an opportunity to make our way through life fairly, to be able to be treated fairly, to treat our kids fairly, to make do for our families, you know, to be good citizens, to be good family members, good tribal members. That's all they want. And I think it's really an indication that this golden rule, this moral imperative of treating other people fairly and kindly, is universal. It's not just a Christian thing. It is a Jewish thing, a Hindu thing, an Islam thing. It is a Native American thing. It is every religion that there is thing. It is a human thing. So embrace your humanity. Embrace your willingness, your eagerness, your passion for treating other people fairly, and let that lead you to see beyond the superficial differences that divide us.
I love that. You know, allow yourself, you know, to be able to namaste, right? See the deity. You know, I think that's probably one of the lines in Hinduism, namaste, right? I see the deity in you, right? I see the God in you, right? So that doesn't allow us to see color, because it allows us to see the greatness within. So I love that you mentioned that, you know, because if we just spent a little bit more time, you know, searching for greatness in others, we wouldn't be so caught up in the time people make error, right? Because no one's perfect. You know, if you, I'll show you a great liar. So no one's perfect. So when we develop a a line of tolerance, build understanding. You okay over there, my brother?
That looks great. I love that. I love that. You know, with the tolerance and the love, we can build a community. We can build a world of patience and understanding, tolerance and understanding. Love it.
Yes, yes. As we are thinking of, and I want to put this in leadership terms, because that's what this is always about, right? Um, I don't want you to, because Paul gave us a list of different religions and how that translate to religion, not to think for my those who may not practice a religion that this doesn't apply to you, right? It's all about being good for goodness sake, making the right decisions, not because you have to, but because you're blessed to. Making, you know, being the love that you would love to receive. You'll find, especially when you're dealing in organizations, when you are more caring, compassionate, more willing to collaborate, that not only does your business do well, but you'll see that there's a greater morale within the business itself. So people are coming in, they don't have miserable Mondays, right? They have magical, they have uh they have miraculous Mondays, right? Because they know they're being greeted with a smile. They're coming back to a place, not only do they love, but they're received with love. They're coming back to a place where their creativity is not only accepted, but applauded, right? We get to do those things when we can namaste, right? See the deity in others and not just appreciate.
I love that. I want to go back to
Yeah.
our focus on curing racism here and exit this conversation with a quote from Martin Luther King, one of my very favorite quotes. And he says that you know, in his I have a dream speech, the end of it is, the dream when the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood, when little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by rather the content of their character. So that's our goal. You know, I think that is, you know, our dream that we share with him. And we want to just encourage everybody out there to embrace that moral imperative of treating other people fairly, treating them kindly, regardless of which group that they belong in, with integrity and respect and fairness and acceptance and understanding and all of those other virtues that we hold so dear, and the way that we would love for other people to treat us.
Yes, yes. And if you'd like for your corporation to move in a more optimal nonprofit, to be able to collaborate together more, if you want your employees just to gain a greater understanding of each other so that they can work together better, please go to curingracism.com. That don't just get the book, but you should get a copy. But don't just get a book. You know, book me and Paul to come and speak, whether it's via Zoom or in person, to your staff, so that we can make them not just happier to work together, but happy to be here. How about that, Paul?
Amen. Always a pleasure, Paz. And thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. Go to curingracism.com, send us some information, reach out, let's connect. Let's make that connection. Let's have that conversation. Let's change the world one heart at a time.
Yes, sir. Tune in next week as we have more ways for you to fall in love with you, your community, and fellow